time for my first crack, and I think Chris Scott and Andrew Mackie Paddy Dangerfield are going to invite Clayton Oliver back down to Reece Stanley's farm because he is still a missing link for the Geelong Football Club. They were beaten, they were smashed in the first half in the clearance battle again. They had trailed by 14 in the on-ball unit, and over the whole season it's been the same story. They've won the clearances only once in their 7 games this season. You don't have to be a body language expert to read these scenes, do you? There's the coach Geelong expert. He's Geelong coach Chris Scott. He goes straight to the midfield group and he's saying, boys, what happened in there today? Because they were beaten when the game was on the line early. And as I said, this has been happening all season long. They've got the runners. They've got the Dash brothers. You coined them, Joey. They still need a hard head inside. Matty Rao probably staying at Gold Coast. And you'd think you'd be able to get Clayton Oliver at a bit of a discount. Now, I know you're unsure, Kingy, because he hasn't shot the lights out, Clayton Oliver, but you'd think, a fresh start, a new environment, get down the Surf Coast, he could still be an A-grader, Clayton Oliver, or have you given up all hope?
Given up all hope strong, I haven't seen it. A-grade is a big comeback from where I'm at, and I would persist with the young guys they've got rather than go to Clayton personally and stay on the development path and challenge these guys to get better. Yep. Like why can't they release Atkins a fraction more and say, hey, mate, go and be our bull? Why can't they get Manor in there and say, hey, go and be our man? I think they've got enough talent there. I don't think they need Clayton Oliver. I understand the discussion though. It's a good one.
Yeah. It's not what they do, but they'll probably try and get him. If they get him for their late first round pick and, and you don't have to pay overs for him because it's probably with King. He's maybe not going to be a top liner again, but he's still going to be an absolutely, worthwhile midfielder.
That'd be about the asking price, I think, John. Coach Chris Scott was asked about the clearance battle after the game.
So the last quarter, you had 10 of the first 11 clearances. I think your first 3 goals were all from stoppage. Is that kind of the thing you can sort of look at and say, if you do that more often, I guess you'd be a better chance of winning?
Sorry, I was a bit distracted there. The first part was their goals from stoppage.
No, you guys. So in the last quarter, you had 10 of the first 11 clearances, and your first 3 goals were from stoppage in that last quarter.
Yeah. It's a huge part of the game now, especially centre bounces with the 6-6-6 and field positions, obviously critical as well. I don't want to answer this question, so I'm just trying to pad it out. Again, I'll say too much.
He's great value, Chris Scott. He knows it's a bit of an issue because when they've got the hard heads around the ball, they can keep Paddy Dangerfield forward. And he's a weapon from the forward half, but they had to break glass in case of emergency today and bring him back into the midfield. You'll see some of his forward stuff here, and he can be a major point of difference there with Jeremy Cameron in the forward half. Let's take a look. So here he is.
This could be the best passenger play I've seen for the year. It was when the game was on a knife's edge. Yep. This goal got him back to 10 points, and it was all because of Paddy. Yep. This aggression, you just don't see anymore. You really don't see many players charge. I feel for Adam Sard. He's thinking, this hasn't happened for 30 years in footy. What's going on? I felt sorry for him.
Jump out of his way that quick. It's not funny, Paddy Dangerfield. That's how they want to play him in the forward half. Right, Kingy, what's your first crack? My first crack, I'm going back to the Dogs, and I just think Amit's making a meal of it. And I just think that they've got the absolute perfect coach for this group. And if you want to assess a coach, wait till he's handcuffed by injuries and has a lack of availability to guys like Treloar, Ugelhagen, Waitman, Bont for 5 of the 7 weeks that we've had so far. There's an evolution going on with this list. They've been impacted by a reset of sorts. I mean, Lob's gone from forward to back. Richards has gone from half back to on ball. Fraser's come in. Hines has come in. Kennedy's been poached from Carlton. You've got Bramble in there, Davis and Dolan. I don't know how much football those 3 are going to play. I don't really care. This guy is doing a great job, and I don't know what they're not seeing at the Dogs. I don't know what Amit's deciding. Why are the slows on Bevo internally at the Dogs? Externally, I think most people can see it and are thrilled with what they see. What a win it was on the weekend. What more do you need to see? I just don't. I don't understand it. I've got nothing against Amit Baines. I hardly know Amit Baines. By face only. Last time I spoke to him, I reckon, was on SEN, and he said that this is a top 4 list. Put enormous pressure on the coach. Yeah. Two years ago, I think it was, or 2 seasons ago. So, and they weren't a top 4 list because they weren't in the top 4.
Well, how do you know? You really don't know. So it's a difficult situation for him to get through. But this coach, if you move on from this coach and get it wrong, they have to just remember where they were before he got here and had some success with this group. They'd been nowhere for quite some time. So this is not a gamble worth taking. You've got a good coach. He may not be the absolute perfect model for you, but for this football club, not you personally, but for this football club, it works.
And you've got to be sure that you can get someone who's better, Joey. And I don't know.
I would think it'd be it would be an amazing effort if they found another coach that would be better than Luke Beveridge. I'm a massive fan. And what is different about this is normally when we're discussing coaches' contracts and all that, it's not a big rush because generally they're in a situation where they're not going to be sought after. Luke Beveridge, absolutely right now, I guarantee you there'll be clubs that are considering their coaching situations would be absolutely inquiring about Luke Beveridge. And if they're not doing their due diligence. So that is why there is a bit of a rush. I agree with Kingy for the Western Bulldogs. He is their man. He's been coaching the lights out. He has for a long time, really. They're transitioning as a group.
What's he done wrong?
I don't think he's done much. Maybe it's just, again, it's the whole just length, tenure, and whether you just need a fresh start. But from what we're seeing, they're having a fresh start on the run. I agree with you. They've transitioned this list. Everyone's still playing for him. They've still got buy-in. It's still a group that can still do things, not just this year, but next year as well. So, yeah, they'd be mad not to re-sign him.
In 11 seasons, they've only finished lower than 10th once, which in a decade of football and how competitive it is, that's a pretty darn good record. 2 grand finals in that time as well. Now, we've been sending a lot of fan cracks in recent weeks, Kingy, and you barged into the office and you said, I've got one this week.
Yes.
So who's our fan crack from?
Our highest ranking fan is Ross Lyon. And he had a crack at quarter time yesterday when he went off his chops. And this is what a fan crack is all about. To level the troops, eyeball them, and just give a good old-fashioned spray. I love seeing this.
That's the Rossi I remember.
That's the Rossi. Your ears are still bleeding. I loved it. And look, it's hard to 100% know what they're talking about when you're trying to read lips and you're trying to work out what the hand gestures and those sorts of things. But I guarantee it was about the handball cough-ups in that first quarter. And some of these just look soft. They make your football club look really weak. And this is not a Ross Lyon trait. This is not what you want. That's a panic handball. That's just into the corridor, your problem, not mine. They just coughed up the ball far too easy. That's your main man in the midfield, Jack Steele, who I would give a spell to if he's going to continue to do that sort of stuff.
Hang on, you dropped the captain.
I think you need to make a statement. We've seen it around the league at the moment, and unfortunately for marquee players, it's worked. We saw what happened with Liam Jones on the weekend. We saw what happened with Bailey Fritsch and Van Rooyen during the week as well. So
they're big calls.
Well, they are big calls, but we're playing for big stakes, and you can't just be nice Ross all the time. And I think selection is the ultimate leveller. You've got to make a statement as a team. Look at him here saying you're just popping up, you're just handballing, you're giving it back. You give the Lions the ball, you bleed.
Yeah, and then when they did cough it up, they weren't swivelling their head, as he said, his presser and finding the Brisbane Lions players and even defending the way they should have. So, as he said, he gave the spray. He didn't get the response he wanted during the second quarter, so he had to make a statement. Now, I don't necessarily agree that young Hugo Garcia was a scapegoat. He just had to change something. So he had to take someone off and try and mix it up. That was the way that he went. And then the second half, he tried to throw the magnets around just to get something going. But it was a pretty ordinary performance, and you're right, they weren't tough enough in the midfield, and they're going to have a look at it.
They were being obliterated in the midfield when he subbed Garcia.
Yeah,
I think he had 4 touches. At the time, it's about his defensive actions as well. I don't know why we're cooking Ross Lyon for making the sub, because that's the sort of leadership and bold decision-making I think St Kilda certainly needs. They haven't won a flag in 60 years, so that's what we need.
The Saints fans wanted a hard ass, and now they've got one.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways.
Yes.
What will be interesting to see with Ross Lyon in this situation, he's been open and honest about delegating a lot more to his assistants and giving them a lot more responsibility. But what I know happens when it's not going his way, he says, give it back to me. So I wouldn't be surprised if Ross is going to take a bit more ownership of the game plan rather than sort of overseeing and helping the others and try and steer it back on track. Because Ross Lyon teams don't concede 100 points 3 weeks in a row. So we'll be keeping an eye on that in the next month or so.
I'm saying drop a player. He's dropping an assistant coach.
No, not dropping the assistant. Ross, you're taking a bit more ownership again.